Errol Spence and Terence Crawford just reignited the boxing world. But this time, it wasn't inside the ring. What started as a casual Instagram live quickly spiraled into a fiery showdown, with both fighters throwing verbal punches that hit just as hard as anything they delivered in the squared circle. Spence was the first to light the match, hopping onto Instagram and openly calling out Crawford, daring him to settle their unfinished business. Crawford didn't back down. In fact, he seemed almost eager to dive into the fire. The insults started flying almost immediately. But it wasn't just typical trash talk about skills or past fights. This went deeper. Spence threatened that if they ever fought outside the ring, he wouldn't just win, he'd break Crawford's neck. The message was chilling. This wasn't two boxers hyping a match. This was personal. This was about pride, about legacy, about something burning far beneath the surface that no title belt could touch. The timing of this clash couldn't be more critical for Spence. After almost 2 years out of the sport, he's not just trying to make a comeback. He's trying to erase the brutal memories of his last appearance. Defeat has a way of haunting fighters, but Spence isn't running from it. He's walking straight through it. In his own words, fear is only real when you haven't yet tasted defeat. For Spence, that fear is gone. All that remains is the hunger to rewrite his story, to prove that the fire inside him burns hotter than any setback. But Crawford wasn't letting him off easy. Throughout the heated live session, he kept warning Spence that if he wasn't ready to truly risk everything, he shouldn't step back into the ring. The warning wasn't hollow. Crawford had already proven that when it came to fighting, he wasn't just better. He was ruthless, clinical, and merciless. Then came the real gut punch, the Hall of Fame argument. Crawford made it clear, if he retired today, he would walk straight into the Hall of Fame. Spence, not so fast. According to Crawford, Spence was still chasing milestones Crawford had already locked in. The conversation stung because deep down, Spence knew there was some truth to it. No matter how many belts he had unified, no matter how many big fights he had won, there was still a shadow cast by that brutal night when Crawford made him look human in front of the world. As if the tension between them wasn't enough, rumors began swirling like wildfire that Spence was retiring. An ex-post from a parody account claimed that the former unified welterweight champ was hanging up his gloves due to another devastating eye injury sustained during training. The news spread fast. Fans were stunned, the media scrambled for confirmations, and it seemed for a moment that the story was closing on Spence's career with a whimper instead of a roar. But Spence wasn't about to let the rumor define him. He jumped onto Instagram and shot the entire narrative down with one emoji and a few cutting words. "Not from me," he wrote, alongside a trash can emoji. It was classic Spence, direct, unbothered, and defiant. This was a man who had survived a near-fatal car crash, surgeries on his eyes, and a devastating career loss. Retirement was not going to be on anyone's terms but his own. Meanwhile, Crawford had bigger fish to fry. He wasn't obsessing over Spence. His sights were locked firmly on Canelo Alvarez, the undisputed king of boxing's biggest stages. Crawford believes he has what it takes to defeat Canelo, even if it means piling on extra weight and going toe-to-toe with one of the most dangerous punchers in the game. Where most see a size disadvantage, Crawford sees an opportunity to make history. His confidence is almost unnerving. He doesn't just believe he can beat Canelo, he expects it. Still, even with Canelo looming on the horizon, Crawford couldn't resist baiting Spence during their fiery exchange. He told Spence he wasn't ready for the rematch. He accused him of making excuses, called him out for past failures, and planted seeds of doubt wherever he could. But Spence, wounded as he might be, never wavered. He didn't flinch. He knows the rematch is his shot at redemption, the kind that few athletes ever get. And if Crawford does move on, leaving Spence behind, Spence isn't without options. Virgil Ortiz Jr. stands as a tantalizing opponent waiting in the wings. Oscar de la Hoya has big plans for Ortiz, envisioning a Texas-sized showdown in Dallas's massive AT&T Stadium. Ortiz is young, undefeated, and packs dynamite in both fists. It's the kind of fight that could either catapult Spence back into the spotlight or shatter the remnants of his career for good. Still, no matchup feels as inevitable or as emotionally charged as the Crawford rematch. Because the first time around, Crawford didn't just win, he put on a masterpiece. He floored Spence early and often, showcasing the kind of precision, timing, and boxing IQ that most fighters can only dream of. Every time Spence tried to mount an offense, Crawford was 3 moves ahead. By the time the referee stopped the carnage in the 9th round, the result was beyond obvious. Crawford hadn't just beaten Spence, he had exposed him. And yet, here's where boxing reveals its brutal beauty. Spence isn't running. He's coming back for more. He's pushing for the rematch, this time at 154 pounds. He believes that at a higher weight, with more time to heal and prepare, the outcome will be different. Maybe it's foolish. Maybe it's heroic. Maybe it's both. But that's what makes boxing great, the heart of a fighter who refuses to stay down. For Crawford, the stakes are just as high. If he accepts the rematch and wins again, he doesn't just cement his dominance over Spence. He stamps himself into the conversation as one of the greatest to ever lace up a pair of gloves. He becomes untouchable, a 2-division undisputed champion who took on all comers and left no doubt about his supremacy. There's an almost poetic symmetry to the possibility of their rematch. Spence, the once invincible star brought low by his own demons and the fists of a better man. Crawford, the eternal underdog who clawed his way to the mountaintop and refuses to be knocked off. 2 warriors linked by fate, bound by a rivalry that transcends belts, titles, and paydays. And it's not just pride on the line. It's legacy. It's immortality. Boxing has a long memory for warriors who dare to rise after they've been crushed. If Spence can come back and shock the world, it would go down as one of the greatest redemption stories in sports history. But if Crawford beats him again, especially with even more dominance, then it closes the chapter for good. Meanwhile, Canelo Alvarez looms large in the background. If Crawford does move up and dethrones Canelo, his name would be etched alongside the greatest fighters ever. And if Spence somehow rises from the ashes and reclaims his place among the elite, it would send shockwaves through the boxing world. One thing is certain, when Errol Spence Jr. and Terence "Bud" Crawford meet again, the world will be watching. Not just because of the belts, not just because of the history, but because fights like these, fights born from pride, pain, and unfinished business, are the ones that live forever. For now, both men are walking their separate paths. But destiny has a funny way of pulling warriors back into the arena. And when that bell rings, it won't just be about punches or scorecards. It will be about heart, about spirit, about the undying will to fight, to prove, to conquer. So whether you're rooting for the wounded lion or the king who refuses to be dethroned, one thing is clear. The next chapter of Spence versus Crawford isn't just a fight. It's history in the making. Stay tuned, because the story is far from over, and the best, or the brutal, might still be ahead.